blame the owner. The Raiders fired Antonio Pierce. I would have not fired Antonio Pierce. They are now, as a franchise, paying 4 coaches. They're paying John Gruden still, Josh McDaniels still, Antonio Pierce, and probably in the next 2 days, a 4th coach. That'll be official. They'll hire somebody else. I assume they'll have another coach. And they've tried every path. The owner wanted to hire a legend who'd been out of the sport for a while, John Gruden. Didn't work. They tried to hire Josh McDaniels, the whiz kid from the dynasty. That did not work. And then they thought, well, we're going to keep the interim coach, who's a former Raider and loved by players. And I didn't know if it would work, but I still would have kept him on, and Antonio Pierce got fired. So for the record, he was 9-17, but I thought the Raiders, considering their quarterback situation, played close games. I mean, they beat Mahomes and Reed in Arrowhead last season with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. And they were a block kick away from beating Mahomes and Reed this year in Arrowhead with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. I mean, Andy Reid in his division with a better quarterback, Jim Harbaugh in his division with a better quarterback, Sean Payton in his division with a better quarterback. I mean, they were 3-1 in division last year, and almost all their games in division are close. He even beat the Ravens this year in Baltimore and Lamar Jackson with Gardner Minshew. So I don't think it's an Antonio Pierce issue. But we all know being the Raiders head coach is not a job. It's a residency. 12, 15 months, get some cash, be on your way. Example where we are blaming the coaches and often blaming the GMs, and that's not the issue here. You tell me the great candidate for this job right now. Ben Johnson, you think with this carousel of coaches, he's putting the Raiders on his list? And oh, by the way, I like Ben Johnson. This Detroit offense is like 8 guys that could end up getting Hall of Fame votes. There's a dozen coordinators in the NFL that could score a lot of points for the Lions. In fact, I'd argue the Lions' most impressive coordinator is Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator.
Okay, let's not go on a whole rant about Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions. Let's focus on the Raiders here. Okay, there's a few things. One, I think there's kind of confusion how this season unfolded for the Raiders. We'll just put that aside. With the Raiders, first off, some of the moves that ownership made, whoever you want to say, like, actually made the final decision on these, I don't think it was necessarily bad. Trying to go take a shot with Gruden was not necessarily this, like, insane idea. Everyone praised the Chargers for going out and getting Harbaugh, so, like, I don't understand why, the whole idea with Gruden. I understand that it didn't work out as planned, but I don't know if you could 100% blame him. As well as then trying to bring the Patriots dynasty over to the Raiders. Like, I don't know why that was also seen as, like, this really, really bad idea. And I think the Raiders, pivoted at the right time. Now, in terms for Antonio Pierce, listen, it's always hard to evaluate a coach when you don't have the quarterback situation taken care of. I get that, but Colin went on a whole rant, just the other day, talking about how important it is to have the coach-quarterback duos and how, especially in the divisions, he's constantly talking about, how you need these great quarterbacks and these great coaches, and talks about this division having Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Herbert and Harbaugh, Bo Nix and Peyton, like that. This is a brutal division with the coaches and quarterbacks, and so you need to find that duo. And I don't think Antonio Pierce was like this disaster necessarily, again, because it's hard to just look at his record when you're having kind of a carousel of quarterbacks. And I do think that they played some close games and looked good at times, but then they've also had their issues. And again, I made my previous video with First Things First when this news first broke. Like, this is why you have Tom Brady. This is why you have Tom Brady. Because if you don't utilize Tom Brady's experience and insights and guidance, well, then there's no reason to bring him in. There's no reason to bring him in. And so, if Tom Brady calls a coach, they're going to pick up. Right? You talk about, will Ben Johnson want to go to the Raiders? Like, if Tom Brady calls and says, hey, let's talk, man, you don't think Ben Johnson's going to pick up the phone and talk to Tom Brady? Like, you don't think they're going to have a conversation at all? Like, of course they will. Of course they will. So that's a major advantage for trying to bring in some talent. It's not act like Tom Brady's some like 80-year-old retired legend who no one ever really respects anymore. I mean, like, so again, and if ownership didn't go to Tom and be like, hey, should we move on from Antonio? Then yeah, then it's a problem. Then I do think it's a problem. But if you got Tom Brady's blessing, because this is what I said before. I said, you give Tom Brady, because I don't think it's a guarantee that Tom Brady can even run this team in the way that you would want. All pro sports are littered with elite talent, Hall of Fame talent, trying to be coaches, GMs, whatever, and it not go so well. So it's not like it's an automatic guarantee. Just because you're an amazing, unbelievable player doesn't mean that you're going to be great at making decisions behind the scenes. But I would still give it a chance. I would still be like, all right, we're going to give you a few years to like, we're going to really listen to what you have to say and really lean on you making the decisions here. I'm going to really take on your guidance. Doesn't mean I'm going to listen to everything you say, but I'm still going to really take it on. And that's what I would do. Because again, otherwise then there's zero reason to have Tom Brady. Just so you could see him in the box seats, nodding his head, clapping, looking at like another famous rich person to the side. Like, no, that's not why you have Tom then. That's not why you have Tom. Or to like sign autographs on like media days and stuff. Like, no. You let him make the decisions. See what the Raiders have in store. Let's see what they have in store. I don't know what decisions they're going to make. But we talk about the Raiders needing to make big moves to be able to keep up with the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Broncos. You got to make big moves. You got to make big moves. So whether Antonio Pierce was the reason or not, and it's funny because last year, Colin criticized the hire of Antonio Pierce and said, you don't want to hire these interim coaches. They trick you in believing that they're better than they are, and the team really likes them, and the team doesn't always know what's best for them, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know, and I don't know if you acquire free agents with what you have right now. He's talking about how Ben Johnson, is only good because of the roster and this and that. And it's like, one, I don't know how true that is. And two, you don't think talent's going to want to go to Ben Johnson? Like, what? People want to play for the Raiders in Vegas. They just haven't had a good enough team and a good enough culture to really seriously acquire that talent. But people want to do it. That's why you got some of the talent that you got there. Because people want to be a Raider. And especially in Vegas now, like it's a great place to be. It's a great part of the country. It's a great spot. And if you can turn that franchise around and start winning, like, you got some legendary status here. The Raiders fan base is massive. And they are hungry for a team that they can cheer for. They are hungry for a contender. So yeah, it's not hard to imagine if you kind of hit the reset button, kind of start over, start from scratch and rebuild this thing, that you can rebuild something special. It's what many teams have done over the years. Most recently, the Chargers, the Commanders, the Broncos. How are those teams doing right now? Pretty good. Pretty good. All those teams hit the reset button completely. Sometimes that's what you need to do. You got to hit the reset button. So, I mean, I feel like this is one of those situations where no matter what the Raiders did, there would be criticism. I can't believe they're bringing Antonio Pierce back. He's 4-13. Then they fire him. I can't believe they're firing him. He's not the problem. Like, okay. It's really like no matter what we do here, it's the wrong decision. And again, to be clear, I'm not saying that Antonio Pierce was the problem, should be fired, should not be fired. Like, that's not the discussion here. But I do think that you bring in Tom Brady for a reason. And Tom Brady reportedly will have a lot to say. That's your swing right there. That's the change that you make right now. That's like, you know what? I've been doing it my own way for a while now. Has not been working. We bring in literally Tom Brady. Let's let him have some major influence for these next few years and see what happens. We're not giving him the complete reins. We're not saying, hey man, take over. It's all on you now. We're not saying that either, but let's let's allow him to have his fingerprints all over the next couple of years and see what happens. Because we see in the NFL how quickly things can turn around. 1 minute, you're literally drafting first overall. The next minute, you're winning the division and are a Super Bowl contender. It happens so quickly. So let's just wait and see. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Raiders and firing Antonio Pierce? Do you think that this is just a really dysfunctional team like Colin is pretty much saying here? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.